Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Sailing with the Jameses. For those of you just joining us, earlier this year we went from an inflatable tender to an aluminium tinny, and we're loving it. There's a few improvements we'd like to make, like installing a floor for better comfort while standing and walking, adding pods to the back for easier swimming access, and fitting a collar for increased stability. Last week we began working on these upgrades, and this week we're diving into fiberglassing. We're sharing our tips, the do's and don'ts we've learned in fiberglassing for dummies. Thank you so much to our Patreons. Your support helps make these videos possible. And if you enjoy this video, give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment. We'd love hearing from you. Hi, we're the James family.
Are you sick of your day-to-day life? Ever thought about doing something different?
Well, we did just that.
We bought an unfinished aluminium catamaran and we're fixing her up as we sail around the world.
Come along for the journey and click subscribe.
Daddy? Mommy? Charlie? James.
Alright, so today the master plan is we're going to teach ourselves how to fiberglass. Now, I did some fiberglassing when I was a teenager making surfboards, but that was a little bit longer ago than I'd like to admit, so it's been quite a while since I've done any kind of fiberglassing. So what we're using is what's called XPS foam. It's a very cheap polystyrene foam. It's a closed cell foam, so it can be used underneath the water. But that's what we're going to be using here, just so we can practice on it. And the first thing we're going to be fiberglassing is extensions for our tender and the floor for the tender. So again, the reason we're doing this is because if they're a bit mucked up, it doesn't really matter. But we're also, because we're practicing, we've got the cheap foam and we've also got woven roving matting, so 300 GSM, which is a cheaper matting as well. It's one step up from chopped strand, so it's nice and strong but very cheap, so we can have a bit of wastage and have a bit of a practice, and we'll just see how we go. So some of the things that we've learned is, one of them is when you're mixing resin and you think you've got it all mixed in, just mix a little bit more. Now the resin that we've used is we've gone for an extra slow cure, which we thought it would be good because we're novices, so to give us a lot more time to play with it, and it does, but it also takes ages to harden, and what that means is it slows down the whole process. So what we have then is we've got to wait a whole night. We can't just put hot coats and do it a lot quicker and put it on because it takes so long to cure.
So there's a fast cure, a slow cure, and then an extra slow cure. We went for the extra slow cure.
And next time we would still go for the slow cure, but just not the extra slow cure. So what Kate's doing here is she's just going to measure up the matting, and what we've found is it's always better to go a little bit over, but not too far over that it bends and starts putting air bubbles in here. Another thing that we would do differently is we went for the cheapest foam we possibly could and the cheapest matting we possibly could. And we wouldn't do that again. I know a poor tradesman always blames his tools, but it does make a difference. This foam is a lot harder to work with. The resin doesn't soak into it as well, and it's quite soft, so it's not a hard foam, which is a little bit of a problem. And then when we're using woven roving, what happens is if you get a large piece of woven roving, it pulls apart. While Kate wets that out and lets you know about that, I'll grab some woven roving to show you.
So what we're we're doing is we're wetting the piece of fiberglass first. We're finding if we wet the foam first, the fiberglass first, and then put it on, it stays better and works a lot better.
So this here is a piece of woven roving, and what happens is it distorts so much easier once you've cut it, and it all just comes apart really, really easy. Where if you get matting like this, it all stays together. It's so much simpler, so much easier to work with. This is a lot cheaper, but it's also got very thick strand fibers, which is a lot harder to wet out. You get 300, this is 300 GSM. You get 300 GSM in a different type of matting, and it's so much easier to wet out. Another type of matting that we have is biaxial, and I'll show you that. And that's the same weight, but because this is so much more spread out, the other one's so much more compact, it's just a lot bigger strands of fiber.
And when we say cheaper, we mean cheaper. It's half the price.
Yeah.
The roll of woven roving was half of what it was for the other stuff. So we decided we'd go for half. And
this here is the biaxial, and I don't know if you can see it. We'll do some close-up footage to show you, but it stays together so much better, and it's actually 300 GSM as well, but it just wets out because it's a lot more compact. It stays together as a solid mat and so much easier to work with.
And the other tip is we found putting down saran wrap or cling wrap.
Yeah, anything. There's builder's tape, there's all sorts. We just had a heap of saran wrap on board, left over from our house actually, that we've been carting around, and as weight is important to us, we decided that, you know, it would be easier to use this. A little bit harder to work with, but yeah. So once both of them are wetted out really well, that's when we put it on. And again, we've found that if you have a bit of overhang, it's a little bit easier to work with. And where you're going to cut it off, don't wrap it round. You want a hard edge to be able to cut. And then what we're trying to do now is just not make it too wet that pulls and runs, but make sure that there's no bubbles or anything in it. Yeah, the biggest things we'll do next time, even though these are only floorboards, it doesn't matter that they're rough. We're not putting a heap of effort into it. We did go a bit cheap. It has cost us time with regards to the slow cure resin, where we wanted to do it rough and quick, a bit of a practice, and then get on to the jobs that are a lot more important to us. I don't know if you can tell, but it's raining today, so it's a good job to have when it's raining anyway. All our other jobs are out where we need better weather to do it in. And then the woven roving is just really, really messy. It's hard to keep your work area clean. The strands break off everywhere, and yeah, a lot harder to work with.
It's given Charlie a job. She's been going around picking up all the strands.
Yeah.
It's been a big help.
Hopefully it'll make us fiberglass gurus by the time we're finished. But yeah, we'll wet down this edge and that's it. And that's that. And then we wait for this to cure, which unfortunately with this stuff won't be until tomorrow. And then we'll grind off the excess and do the other side.
So for lunch today in the boatyard, we are having chicken quesadillas. So we're just frying up the chicken right now. We've got wraps. Sam's just downstairs grinding off some of the fiberglass that cured overnight. And then when Hayes done, he's going to come up for some lunch. Right now, my new obsession is this all-purpose seasoning. This is literally a new obsession of mine.
It's a great choice, Ham. So we've purchased 2 additives to go with the fiberglass. We have a thing here called Q-cells, and essentially what that does is it builds it up and it's very sandable. There's a lot more product that goes into it. And then we have a thing here called Carbocel. and Carbocel essentially makes a glue. So what it does is it thickens it up, but the difference between Carbocel and Q-Cells is Carbocel, there is still a lot more resin in the mix. With Q-Cell, you'll go, you know, say 50-50 Q-Cell to resin, where with Carbocel it'll still be about 1/5, and then it'll be nice and thick. So what we do is we get a handful, pour it in there. We're going to need a few handfuls. And then we mix it really well. And what this will do, rather than the Q-Cells, is it'll make it really, really thick. You can see here, it's turning into more of a paste, which is what we want. So when you lift your stick up, it should stick to the stick. This needs to be mixed a little bit better. And if it starts to feel warm in your hand and is starting to go off, all you do is you just spread it out around the outside. The bigger the clump of resin, the quicker it goes off. The smaller the clump of resin, the less it goes off. But you can see here, you've got to mix it a little bit more, but we're turning it into a nice paste. This is what we want. If it still runs off your stick, then it's not what you want. You want it nice and thick. And this is the difference between the Carbocel and the Q-Cells. That amount of Q-Cells and it'd still be really, really, really runny. Where this is nice and thick. I've gone for a slightly thicker paste with this one here because we're actually gluing the back pieces on. So we have these gussets here that need to be glued into there, and there's a fair bit of area to make up. So we wanted it to be nice and thick, so we can put it on there, and it's not going to run anywhere. So what we're about to do now is mix up some Q-Cells. Q-Cells is the sandable element that you put in with the resin. So the way I've found the easiest way to do it is I still mix the resin in my trusty measuring cup, but then I pour it into a big ice cream container. Because Q-Cells are so light, it just goes everywhere before you mix it in. And then I put just a little bit of resin in the bottom, fill this up with Q-Cells, put the lid on, and just give it a big shake just to try and spread it all through and get it all soaking in. And then from there I'll do the final mix and then apply it. So here we go.
And a little tip, don't touch your hair. It'll stick.
Join us next week as we hopefully enjoy the fruits of our labor. And don't forget to click those like and subscribe buttons. And if you guys are interested in becoming Patreon, the link is in the description below. And we will see you guys next week. Bye guys.